Welcome back to the Power 365 show. If you've ever wondered about design thinking, or you've heard a new product or team set up in Microsoft called Catalyst, this is the show for you. Today we're going to chat with Daniel Hunter, Jeff Hall, and Rob Nehrbas, all from Microsoft, all with long tenure in Microsoft, around what Microsoft Catalyst is, where it came from, and really, for Microsoft partners, what is happening here is critically important for your future success. It'll transform the way you think about how you engage with customers for projects. It will grow your deal size phenomenally. And I'm speaking about this from personal experience where, within the company I work for, we had a full design thinking team. And I tell you, all the deals grew. They were more on point. The customers, extremely happy with the outcomes. And, a lot of technology type companies in the Microsoft space, a lot of SIs, VARs, that type of thing, have not got this kind of experience. It's new, but it's worth getting on board and understanding what it is. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/144. Now let's get on with the show. Okay, I'd like to welcome our lineup of guests today. We've got Daniel, Jeff, and Rob. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, good to have you on the show where we're going to talk all things Microsoft Catalyst. But before we get underway, starting with you first, Daniel, why don't you tell us about what you do when you don't work, a bit about your family life and where you come from?
Well, I was born in D.C., but I grew up in Colorado. I now am with a wife and 4 kids in Houston, Texas. Mm-hmm. We have a 12-year-old boy named Riley, 10-year-old girl Peyton, and then we had boy-girl twins 3.5 years ago, Brooklyn and Beckett. Yeah. Wow. So my free time, Mark, is limited. But if I do have free time, it's for myself anyway. It would be maybe a little golf. I dabble with acoustic guitar.
Nice.
Most of the time, my guitar is being used as a weapon amongst my kids. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I like it.
You're an amateur videographer too, aren't you, Daniel?
Oh.
Well, I wouldn't go there, but thank you, Rob.
I sense there's a story there.
Maybe.
This guy goes nowhere without a video camera, it seems.
Very cool. Very cool. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, so my name is Jeff Hall. I've been with Microsoft for a little bit over a decade, entirely in the dynamic space. Run the Catalyst team currently. Work very closely with Daniel for almost the entire 10 years I've been at Microsoft, and actually a little bit before that when I was running a partner team for a few years. And Daniel was already at Microsoft, and we got to know each other then. That was really a little bit of the foundation of what's ultimately become the Catalyst team today. I live in Austin, Texas. Got a wife, 3 children, a large dog. I guess when I'm not traveling, when I'm not working or I'm not driving around to sporting events, chasing after kids, we have a boat close by on the lake. We'd like to do a little bit of wake surfing.
Nice. Very nice. Rob, what about you?
Yeah, well, that sounds great, Jeff, especially the wake surfing part. So my name is Rob Nehrbas. I've been at Microsoft for 13 years, all in the dynamic space. I also have children, 2 of them, a 8-year-old girl and a 5-year-old son, and they keep me quite busy. I've actually really started to enjoy coaching their youth sports, in particular soccer. So they're both, playing soccer, and that's something that has become quite fun and also gobbled up quite a bit of our free time.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I also enjoy boating, running, traveling when we can. So a lot of things to do here in Seattle to keep one occupied.
Yeah, I bet. So you guys are, some time ago I watched a video. It would have been the start of this year. Alyssa Taylor was fronting a video around Microsoft Catalyst, and I was like, hang on a second, what is this? Haven't heard of it before. And since then, I've got in touch with you guys and was quite surprised to see that you've all got tenure in the business. You've been around for a long time in Microsoft. For some reason, I thought this must have been all new blood. But Jeff, why don't you go and tell us what is Catalyst and what problem is it solving in Microsoft?
Yeah, I'll start us out. Daniel, Rob, feel free to chime in. But basically, right about 2 years ago, Daniel and I had just finished a large and pretty complex customer transformation engagement, and we started to kind of reflect on a number of these that we had done over the years and how we had been successful in working with our customers in ways we felt was elevated from, quite honestly, from most of how the rest of the Microsoft field engages with their customers. And we really started to catalog all this because we felt like there was a need to take some of the work that we'd been doing and the things that had made us successful. And, some of that was work that was by product of other smart people that we've surrounded ourselves by, and package it up into something programmatic. Our competition have, we'll call them white glove transformation programs for a subset of their customers that they will take them through to help them reimagine a future state of their business. These are branded offerings with a tremendous amount of investment behind them, and in many ways have become the centerpiece of some of their growth strategies. Microsoft has a myriad of things that ultimately could stack up and be the equivalent and then some of one of those programs, but we didn't have any singular branded experience that we could take to our customers, that our senior executive leadership could take to our customers and say, we have a prescriptive approach to help you go from where you are today, reimagine an optimal future state of where you want your business or some key aspect of your business to be, and end with a true real world line of sight to a transformation strategy plan. And that's really what Catalyst is all about. So we are, in effect, a small team. And when Microsoft's executive leadership, Hayden Stafford or Lissa, for example, or James Phillips, are having C-level conversations with market-leading brands, they can engage our team to run this program. And the program has a myriad of investments that are not a part of a standard, just a sales pursuit, if you will. We get to break a little glass and do things go a little bit deeper and a little bit wider in helping the customer go through an envisioning process and do a lot of things that are precursors to even getting to any of the technology discussion. Yeah. Daniel, anything you want to add to that?
I think that we were used to, Jeff and I have been working together in selling capacities for at least a decade, or around a decade. And it used to be that customers were just kind of calling us to solution immediately. And so our, the nature of our engagement was very much technical, right? And primarily IT. And so our field teams right now are, that's just how it works in the field, and that's how our customers think of us. And so I think that this Catalyst program is a new conversation with a customer that extends the nature of our engagement with customers prior to the solutioning aspects, right? Where we can really, like Jeff said, drill down into, what are they trying to transform? Is what they're doing, or is this North Star for them actually correct? And we have an opportunity to now reframe that.
Yeah, and Daniel, to Daniel's point, a cliche term that's stayed with me in my career, I was told early on, is you get delegated to the person or the people that you sound most like. And Microsoft sellers have a history of sounding a lot like mid-level IT, right? We come in and we start talking about technology solutions right out of the gates. And, Daniel and I, through some line of fortune and I guess wit, looked at an opportunity to go around that. We recognize that the business community is at an inflection point that's unlike anything anybody's ever seen before. And companies are acquiring and thinking about technology different than they ever have, because everything today is about a business transformation initiative that has something to do with the overarching strategy of the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in my past, right, I always found that, I love that quote, by the way, you get delegated to the people you most sound like. And Microsoft often, when in the biz app space, particularly with Dynamics and the whole line of products there, would often struggle with having only relationships with IT in an organization and not broader around the business. And of course, what you're saying here is that this is not an IT discussion. This is much broader than that. It's really about where that business is going. And, we see a lot about, James Phillips often presents on digital transformation, and he's got the four propellers and or the four blades of the propeller. And a lot of people look at that and go, yeah, but what does that mean? What is the tangible tools on the ground that we can take that or those parts of the business and map solutions and outcomes that are just not starting around technology.
Yeah.
What you're explaining sounds a lot like design thinking to me. Tell us a bit more about the relationship between design thinking and the business decision maker and Microsoft Catalyst.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to step back from doing what we traditionally do, which is taking requirements from a customer and parsing through them and, looking at them and saying, this is configuration, this is customization, this is out of box. These are the details for how we're going to do this. What's missing from those requirements that we typically engage with customers is value. And so what we want to do in order to derive that is we want to take a step back from those requirements and with the customer go through a set of design thinking exercises to help reframe the problem and put the human in the center. Right. So if we can drop, if we know that our platform is the most comprehensive platform, then if we let our customers just freeform ideate, we have a better chance of delivering first party solutions based on those ideas than our competition does. So now we're kind of scientifically applying design thinking to springboard downstream activities as part of Catalyst. Jeff, Rob, do you?
Yeah, I'd add to that, kind of going back to the earlier conversation of Microsoft has a tendency of being stuck in the IT org. And if you think about the nature of how things tend to happen with customers, typically there's some recognized need for change that is supported or brought up at an executive level. And then ultimately that executive or those executives say go form a committee, and a committee formed that goes out to try to figure out, okay, what do we do about this, right? Do we need new technology? Do we upgrade this technology? And the first thing they tend to do is look around at the known hindrances that they have. We've only got so much time, so much resources, so much money. We've got existing contracts in place, all these things that they start to whittle down the initial vision for the change down to something that's more reflective of that they feel comfortable with. So then the next step in the process is, okay, well, now we call Microsoft, we call these other technology providers. We've got this whittled down vision and we ask them to come solve for it. So by the time we go through all these motions with them, we're really not addressing what they really truly set out to address from the very beginning. So what design thinking does is it kind of causes everybody to take pause. And we know you've got limitations. We know you've only got, so much time, money, resources, whatever the case might be. But let's look and see what the optimal future state would be. And then from there, certainly we're going to work back to what's feasible and something that actually can be executed. But it gets us further and closer, rather, to the original intent than traditional requirements gathering does.
One quick comment, with this, with design thinking and, the approach of, divergent approaches to solutions and problems before you start to kind of converge on the solution, is it does create a safe space for multiple people in the organization to share their ideas. Oftentimes you'll find stakeholders that are maybe more senior or overbearing that tend to be heard, but yet someone either a peer or lower level that might not have as a dynamic or a overbearing personality just doesn't get heard. And what we found is that nobody is going to know the industry or their business like our customers do. They're the bankers. They're participating in this. They know it, and to that point, it tends to be that they also have the best ideas and how to transform their business. And what we need to do through this process is just unlock those and share them and get the customer to align and prioritize accordingly.
Well, one thing I'll say also is, there's plenty of frameworks, visuals about design thinking out there. There's all sorts of varying things, but they all have some things that are in common. Rob alluded to the concept of divergent and convergent thinking. But the other thing is that when we get into these workshops, we call them envisioning workshops, these design thinking workshops, we don't need to consider the feasibility of what comes out of that yet, right? We also don't need to consider the viability, right? And one thing that we're doing now with design thinking that we had to do before just as traditional sellers was determine the desirability, because they're basically coming up. The customer is creating their solution, right? They're even getting to the point of prototyping, maybe on paper, but prototyping something that they can vet for desirability. And it's not till later downstream in the idea framework that we then start to kind of get to a true innovation state, which is the kind of the Venn diagram of desirability, feasibility, and viability. And that's a really core concept of design thinking that lends well to what we're trying to do with customers now.
So I assume that it opens up a much broader and wider discussion than let's say in the past it was going to be, sell them CRM or an ERP.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the conversations we have now are very broad, right? I mean, if the customer comes to us and says, we want to lay down a new, I don't know, customer service experience for our agents, right? When we go through these workshops, the problem statement changes into a very strategic 2 to 3 year direction for the company, which doesn't just impact the agents, it impacts the customers, it impacts stakeholders. It's retail, it impacts maybe store associates. And so that's not uncovered until we get into a workshop setting where, as Rob alluded to, it's a safe area, but there's healthy friction among a variety of roles. All of a sudden, the problem gets kind of reframed, and then the ideas that come out of that reframed problem are much broader than what was originally intended before the workshop.
Yeah. So you get much more from that list of requirements rather than dealing with that. You're doing customer journey mapping, you're understanding how that engagement is happening, and then ultimately at the end of it, deciding what technology is going to solve problems.
That's right.
Yeah, and even focusing on the experiences, like who is going, what experiences do you want to create? Asking that question instead of what capabilities do you need? Right? That's what happens when you put the human at the center of the process.
Yeah, I like it. So there's 4 pillars in what you're doing: inspire, design, empower, achieve. Can you tell us what these are? Unpack these a bit for me.
Sure. Maybe I'll take a stab at that initially. I think what this comes down to, this idea framework is really our recipe. And Jeff and Daniel talked about the iterative approach we went down in order to create this. And the other ingredient that I would probably put in there that helped us shape this is Microsoft's own transformation. It's debatable that no other company in history has transformed to the extent that we have. And
exactly, light and day right over the last 5 or so years.
Yeah, light and day. So the customers are curious on how we did it, right? So when we kind of unpacked that, we looked at how we transformed and married that with the iterative approach that Jeff and Daniel had in forming the Catalyst process. And ultimately, what you have is this idea framework, which is inspire, design, empower, and achieve. And what we've found is this is the recipe for digital transformation. It's effectively what we do internally when we look to transform ourselves. And now we're building this muscle and to guide our customers along this journey as well, so they can have the success and experience success that we at Microsoft have had. When you look at the pillars, inspire, right, is the starting point, right? And this is really where we want to set out that vision. This is where that design thinking comes into play, where we start to reimagine a future state of the business and figure out what really is transformational and what new segments or new markets can we attack. Obviously, this is all grounded in the key initiative that the business stakeholder is going to have. Once we have that vision, which is if you look at the innovation matrix, innovation matrix for us is typically looks like a Venn diagram where you've got desirability, viability, and feasibility, and then the cross section there is your innovation. Design starts to hash out those other two parts of that Venn diagram, right? So, is it business? Does it have viable from a business perspective? Meaning, if we did this, is the business outcome there? Is the return there? And then, of course, we need to have that denominator to create the ROI, and that's really where the feasibility comes in as well. So, under the design section, we're looking at is it financially viable? Is it technically feasible? Right, and that starts to kind of help us shape our priority and figure out where do we want to take the customer. from there, we move into the empower phase, right, which is bringing this to life through visual artifacts, story demonstrators, videos, software demonstrations, maybe mini proof of concepts, and a very iterative approach. And this starts to to validate our ideas, right, and start to bring them to life so that people can see the vision and start to buy in. And then achieve is really the last frame here, and it's more of a perpetual really look at things, because it does include things like your your roadmap, right, for digital transformation, but it's also inclusive of all of the great resources Microsoft brings to bear, including like the customer success management team, and our prescriptions there to realize user adoption and to ensure this is a successful deployment.
Mm-hmm. So when I think of this and I think of the partner ecosystem out there, why is it important that partners get up to speed and understand the implications of this? That's kind of like my first question, but then also from a customer's point of view, why is it so important that a customer, rather than, if you're like firing out an RFP and saying, listen, we're going to tell you exactly what we want, you're all going to bid on it. Why is it important if that a business is really going to go through a transformation, they need to be looking at this type of tooling if they're going to spend their money right and create that transformation?
Mm-hmm. So, the reason it's important is, to use Rob's word, while the customers know their business much better than we will ever know their business, we have the fortune of seeing across many businesses and many industries, and being able to borrow from what's happening in one industry may be fruitful for another customer in another industry. Today is, a lot of times we see healthcare looking to retail for guidance on, as an example, on how they may transform things, the ways of old, and move them forward. The other thing is, Gartner talks about this a lot. Design thinking is really about no constraint thinking. And this is something that is a common approach today for companies that are, for the first time ever, really finding themselves having to make broad sweeping changes to their business. So it's important because it is fundamentally different than creating an RFI or creating an RFP and then go soliciting feedback from vendors, because that's usually almost always about technology, right? And the ways that companies have thought about driving change to their business historically simply aren't the ways that are going to get them where they need to go today. Because if you think about what business transformation or digital transformation, whatever language you want to use there, what it's really about is about making fundamental changes to your business model, how you're creating, delivering, and capturing value with your customers. And if we're going to make, serious changes to our business model, then how we drive that kind of change is got to be different than what we used to do, which was, companies would always make incremental changes to their business model over time as customer market trends arose, new competitors arose, new product opportunities maybe came to be, whatever the case might be. They would tweak and turn their business model, incrementally over time. Well, today they're having to dissect it and ask questions that they've never asked of the business. Are we in the right business? Our customers, the same customers that we've always served, are those the ones that we should be focusing on going forward? Is our value proposition relevant for our future state? I mean, that's very different than making incremental changes to our business model. That's potentially making massive changes to our business model. And Rob brought up a really good point earlier when we talked about Microsoft, and we are a perfect example of why Catalyst is applicable, why no constraint thinking is applicable, and why the business and digital transformation is really about business model changing, because we have gone through our major first iteration when we changed our entire value proposition to being cloud-based solutions and cloud-optimized solutions. That then, in turn, if you remember several years ago, we got a little bit of not so great press because we laid off thousands of people worldwide. And what the market didn't understand at the time was we were really retooling our sales and our service delivery organizations, our value delivery organizations, around this future state that we were working towards, right? And then, then the final piece of that is, if you think about the last part of the business model changes, it used to be if I spent $1 million with Microsoft, I wrote them a check, I got my software, I went and installed it, and if I needed more, I did the same thing. Well, now we recognized that the prevailing business models of large technology companies were very quickly shifting to cloud-based businesses and service subscription-based. So everything we sell today primarily is a subscription or a service or an incremental revenue component. So very, very different than the business model of Microsoft's old. And it was all because we were transforming our business and employing technologies as a part of that transformation. So we didn't get there by taking the same line of thought to change and the same actions that we had taken for decades past. We got there by fundamentally rethinking these big aspects of the Microsoft business. And that's what Catalyst is really all about and brings to the table.
So you based on what Jeff's saying there, I mean, I think it's probably obvious to say that incorporating things like design thinking are not just because our competitors are doing it. There's a real reason Catalyst has come to be. And it's, I think Jeff did an awesome job just describing how there's a science to this that has been proven effective and is perfectly positioned based on where the market forces are pushing and pulling. So
it's good.
Yeah. So, going back to what I said earlier about that we are at an inflection point where companies are having to do things that are, really, if you look historically at business, it's kind of unnatural. Most companies haven't decided to make these massive changes to their business in any given point in time. But today, by nature of the fact that information's everywhere and our expectations as consumers, as individuals, and as business people are different because we know we now have the ability to do things unlike we've ever been able to do them and leverage and reason over information in ways we've never been able to do this. Our customers are having to question everything about their business. And what that means is our customers really are human beings, right? I mean, they may be huge brands we're working with, but regardless of what industry that we've been engaging in and what type of customer we're working with, there are people that are making decisions. And 99% of the time, these people have not gone through something like this. Right. These executives that have got tremendous amounts of responsibility and accountability and shareholder accountability, they are finding themselves having to make massive changes to their business and take risks that they've probably never taken before. So they're looking to, they're looking to the likes of a McKinsey or Gartner or Ernst & Young or, strategy consultants. They're also looking to their technology partners that have a broader exposure to what other companies are doing. And they're really looking for guidance in ways that historically they weren't really looking for guidance on this front. They were looking for somebody who could deliver technology to support something they're doing. What we found, and one of the reasons Catalyst is getting the investment from Microsoft that it's getting today, is these executives are out of their comfort zone in some ways and are really looking for somebody to come in and say, here's a process, here's an approach that's going to help you go from where you are today and help you vet through all this unknown stuff and get to where you're trying to be with the business in the near term and long term.
I think the threat of disruption is real, right? And it's causing these business stakeholders to take note and to rethink the way that they approach, right? It's, change or die, transform or be disrupted. And then the question obviously is, well, how do I go? Where's my first step? And I think that's really where, the Catalyst process is a nice fit.
And Mark, you had asked another question. There were two questions there about partners. The reason why it's so important that partners are, kind of get this Catalyst and idea framework ingrained in their engagements is that they are just like business value management, our architecture teams, our CSMs for human change management. These are all very important components and resources that already existed at Microsoft, and Catalyst kind of wraps them in a manner that makes sense. Partners is also one of those resources. So we need them involved in and subscribing, let's say, to the Catalyst program and idea framework because they're playing it. Maybe under our direction, our lead, or in their own engagements under their own lead. But if we're all kind of marching to the same tune, then we can all align and go after markets better.
I just know for a lot of partners, this is gobbledygook to them, right? This is, a lot of, that have ultimately even come from doing infrastructure and they've grown up and, got onto Office 365 and, the Dynamics or the business apps range of products and Azure and things like that. This still is foreign talk that you're talking about. And you mentioned there the science behind it, the methodologies. If they were, listening to this and they went out, what type of search things do they need to search for to kind of understand some of those building blocks, where it's around, empathy mapping, customer journey mapping? Where does it all come from? You talked about science. Is it, for me, I know IDEO. What else is out there?
There is a ton of stuff. And you can kind of think of it as open source. I mean, there are companies that have built their businesses around training and facilitating human-centered design. And there are things that aren't, as easy to adopt and to practice. Typically like, some of the prototyping efforts and maybe even earlier on, some of the interviewing and field research techniques. Those are things that take practice, but I mean, ultimately, the science behind this, Mark, is people who know design thinking are probably going to roll their eyes when I talk about the double diamond, but it's a hard thing to convey over an audio podcast.
I know, but it does make sense, right? It does make sense.
Yeah, it's really core to what we're doing across all of Catalyst. And if you think of that first diamond being what we call the problem space, the second diamond being the solution space. Well, the customer thinks they're coming to us. When we get engaged with an account and they give us requirements, they think that they are in the intersection, they're right in the middle, where the problem has been defined and they want to move into the solution space, right? Where in reality, they're probably all the way back at the beginning of the solution space where they're diverging in the problem space, where they're diverging on what the problem actually is, and they haven't even converged or come to an agreement on what their 2 to 3 year plan will be. So we can help facilitate that by taking a couple steps back, stretching. Not stretching by no means means, lengthen the engagement. We're actually trying to accelerate the engagement, but stretching that out so that we can reevaluate, so that when we do go in solution, we're solutioning for the right problem, right? Instead of having to go back and reiterate. And everyone knows that's listening to the podcast, that you're going to go straight into solution. And guess what? The customer's going to call and say, no, we need it this way. And then you go do it again. And then you go do it again. And it takes more time. By doing it right the first time, you're actually accelerating the deal.
It also helps. It accelerates and it helps avoid, the no decision, right? That tends to be our biggest competition is no decision, and you kind of eliminate that up front when you spend enough time, not only bringing the problem into the frame and identifying what the problem is, but then aligning all the stakeholders on, that actually is the problem. And then once you've got that alignment, it's kind of like a train on the rails. You're just going to be able to ride that through.
Oh, totally. And what's really fun. I mean, these workshops, for me at least, professionally, have been very gratifying. I mean, there's nothing more satisfying than standing up in front of these stakeholders and them providing comments that are, this was a great experience. These are our ideas, and guess what? They put it's their ideas, it's their fingerprints. It's all over this new solution now. And another little tactic about design thinking is that you really want to ideate and then converge on all those things as quickly as possible, because there is a correlation between how much time goes by and how much one loves his or her idea. Right? So if that's the case and we execute, we're doing all this ideation, we come down to a set of solutions that make sense and everybody agrees, that's fantastic, but it's theirs. And we let it simmer, which means time is going by, their idea continues to be more and more loved, right? It's their idea. So it's just, there is a science to this. And then now we can springboard into, producing the business value. Now that we know what the solution is, let's help them put together a business case that, that they can use to internally advocate and commit to an action.
Yeah.
I like it.
One thing I want to just underscore here is we've talked a lot about the envisioning, the design thinking portion of the Catalyst program, but a lot of times internally at Microsoft, I think people have a tendency to feel that that's what Catalyst is. While it's a critical part in the idea framework and a big part of what we do, fundamentally changes how we go about our core discovery, and it sets the stage for creating what we call our observation model, which is where we really identify transformative opportunities with the customer. It's not the entirety of the program, right? I mean, there's still a lot of other solutioning work that happens. One of the things that we do with our team that isn't necessarily something the broader Microsoft organization has the luxury of doing, but is we take the solutioning that we do, the prototyping that we build with the customer, the future state day in the life of these personas that we've created through design thinking, and we have a professionally produced 3 to 5 minute video of this future state created, where there's actors and actresses in it. There's scenes created. And the idea is for the stakeholders that are involved in creating this new vision with us, it gives them a vehicle to help articulate that vision to other stakeholders and people in the organization that are either going to influence a decision or be influenced or impacted by a decision, and helps them garner support and interest and excitement from the rest of the organization. And we've done this countless times now. We've had customers showcase the video at their sales kickoffs to get everybody excited about it. So that's another example of, certainly the design thinking is a core component of this, but what we do is when we carry that torch forward, we're still going deep and wide and differentiating from a sales pursuit in a lot of ways, all the way through creating that real world line of sight strategy plan with the customer at the end.
Yeah. I definitely found in my experience that when we did the video, like you're saying, because we do the same thing, you really do empower the entire organization to take that video, to not have Chinese whispers, if you like, into the conversation and really land that messaging. I just found when we used it, particularly government agencies, it was easy to then go to another government agency and say, hey, look what this agency did. You would show that video story to them. And, before it was finished, they were like, man, that's exactly what we need. We need to go on this journey.
Some of the things that we're crafting, these future things we're crafting with these people, are a little abstract, right? They're hard to understand if you're just hearing about it. But if we can show you what that future state can look like, and then typically, again, since we're engaged with big market leading brands, with my team, again, not the overall Catalyst level of effort that's underway, but my particular team, we'll have Judson or one of our senior executive leaders that has a relationship with the customers intro this video and set the stage for why we've made this investment with them and how excited we are about creating this future state with them. And it really lands well. Customers we work with tend to, helps them garner the interest that they're looking for to move forward with something risky like business transformation.
Yeah. One of you mentioned business case, that you drive through to a business case. And, one of the tools when I was partner side, Microsoft would have us use this Sharp Finesse, which ultimately allows you to break right down into financials and things like that. Is those type of tools part of your mix as well?
They are. So what we've done is they've made some organizational structural changes so that the business value management team that you're probably are speaking about with the Shark Finesse and so forth is now a part of the broader Catalyst effort. So they are using and applying those same tools and those approaches. Collectively, we're looking to continue to evolve and iterate on how their approach can be grown even further, because we see it as a critical part of everything we're doing.
Okay, so you've been going, 12 months roundabout, as in the actual Catalyst part of the business, is that right?
Yeah, give or take. We've been actually a little bit longer than that now.
Okay.
July 2018.
We're about 15 months in as a team.
Okay.
We launched. It's important to clarify also, and I don't think we covered this yet, but so there's the Catalyst program team. That is some of the folks that were on this call. We are the ones that are brought in by Microsoft's senior leadership team to run the idea framework, run the Catalyst program with those customers that have articulated an aspiration to transform some key aspect of their business. What Rob's team has done is they have taken some of the approaches, the assets, the methodologies that we're employing, and they are making those more readily available and training partners in Microsoft field so that they can take this to a broader set of customers and really start to differentiate how we're engaging with our customers so that we are really finitely centered around solving for business problems rather than starting from a point of technology.
Yeah. So, Rob, do you want to expand on this, what the next 12 months look like as you provide these assets out and perhaps start involving more Microsoft partners in Catalyst?
Yeah, certainly. It's an important strategy for us. We were after piloting Catalyst, through the program team, through Jeff and Daniel and their organization. We saw the success, so we were pretty excited about the framework, and we were kind of forced to take a path here. Do we build out the program team, right? Because we want to take this to more customers. Right. I guess that was the path we were going down. And then Alyssa and Hayden said, well, if you guys are having so much success here, we should do this to all of our customers should experience this. Right. So over the last I guess it's 9 months, we've been working on a scale plan. And that is taking all these processes and tools and artifacts and methodologies, right, and enabling our broader field and our partners to run these Catalyst engagements for customers, so we can have a broader reach with it. It is a recipe for digital transformation. We are confident about that because we've experienced it ourselves, and we're seeing our customers experience it as well. So, it's starting already, right, with the field. We are we have these events we call Accelerate Sell Stores, and this is where all of our sellers get together in region for a week and get training. And so we're starting to roll out the capabilities and the knowledge there. That is also inclusive of some design thinking training, so which we're pretty excited about, and honestly our field is pretty excited about as well, to get some of that design thinking training so that they can have this new mindset as they go approach customers and problem solving. And the same goes with the partners. In fact, we're starting with a small set of our inner circle partners, and the boot camp, the partner boot camp. Actually, the first one is this week. So we've got 20 partners in town for our Catalyst boot camp this week here in Redmond, and then we're going to do a second one in a couple weeks in Amsterdam. We'll learn from those, and then just kind of keep rolling these things out, so we get as many partners just trained as possible.
Rob, Jeff, and I are heading up to Seattle in like literally 2 hours, so we might have to connect while we're up there.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Bring your rain jacket.
That's what I heard.
So I noticed that Bill Gates, or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have funded a thing called what was it called? It was part of IDEO, but it was called Design Kit, which I actually had my staff, as in my Dynamics consultants, had a team around 70 consultants. And I actually started getting them all trained on this way of thinking. How important do you think it is for people like functional developers and architects to really starting to add to their repertoire some of those kind of skills around design thinking when they're engaging with customers?
Well, I mean, there could be a misconception or misperception of what we're doing with design thinking as we scale. I mean, the thing is that a lot of these techniques, this human-centered design concept, these are things that we do every day, right? And what we're trying to do is provide a set of kind of templates, if you will, right? And instead of jumping straight to an answer, we have a way to really better understand what the best answer is, in a manner of saying. We can apply these things anywhere. Like if we're having conversations with customers about what kind of challenges they're having, there's one technique called abstraction laddering, and really all it is asking the question why like 5 times or as many times as you can. Why is this a challenge? Okay, well, if that's the case, why is that a challenge? And what's interesting about that is that you really do get rooted in more value-based conversation at that point. And I think anyone who, even if you're developing software or if you're a consultant, deploying an SFA solution, right? To be able to apply these techniques when you ask yourself, why do I need to make this form this way? Or, what would be the best out of all of these potential solutions? How can I determine out of these 10 which one is the absolute best direction for me to go? that's all design thinking, and it can be really applied to anything. Shoot, you can apply it to how you manage your family if you really wanted to.
Yeah, so true. So true.
In fact, I do that. We do a roast corn bud every night at dinner.
There you go.
It's so good. That's so good.
I just want one comment too. I think it's really important for, like you said, functional consultants or analysts, just to start to, embrace these technologies, because at the end, you're going to have a more comprehensive, solution, right? That's going to be able to deliver more impact. And, if you think about turning that on its head a little bit, and, we haven't talked about a concept called, jobs to be done, but that's another kind of way to look at the problem. Like, what is the job to be done that you're solving for your customer? If you can exasperate that, have an exhaustive approach to that solution, then you're less likely to be disrupted. I think about the people that are selling coffee grinders, right? And, they were looking at the customer's job to be done in making a cup of coffee. Well, we're going to help them with that by giving them a coffee grinder. Here comes Nespresso or Keurig saying, we're going to make the water hot. We're going to grind the coffee. We're going to make it just so it's a push button experience. And that's going to encompass more of the job to be done and create a higher value proposition for the customer. And you can arrive at those higher value propositions by staying curious, right? By making sure that you're exhausting all those solutions. You're asking the why. You're abstracting it. You're really making sure that you're broadening out the problem statement and the solution.
I like it. Okay, we're running out of time quickly. Basically, have you guys anything that you want to say, kind of wrap this up, and then we'll jump into some quick fire questions, which are designed to really have nothing to do with business, but just a bit entertaining.
Sure.
Go for it, Jeff. You want to do a wrap up?
Oh, what do you have in mind for the wrap up?
No, I'm just saying, is there anything that you wanted to cover but you haven't felt we've covered quite yet?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I just, again, I think the important thing I want our customers, our partners, our peers to walk away with is that the intent of the Catalyst programs provide, a specific set of steps, a prescriptive approach with a defined beginning and end to, it's an iterative thing, but a defined beginning and end to the process. That is centered around solving for business problems and then mapping technology up underneath that, kind of on the tail end of things. It's a little bit of a retrofit from what you expect out of a technology provider. It's a little bit of a reverse play on how Microsoft is historically engaged with our customers. But because we are at such a unique point in time where companies are finding themselves making the kinds of changes that they are to their business, I think it's critical now that as they're thinking about acquiring technology differently, that we're engaging with our customers differently than we have, and really centering around their business problems.
I like it.
That wasn't very good.
I'm surprised you didn't say at the end of that, stay classy, San Diego.
Stay
I was waiting
classy.
for that.
Anything you other guys want to add?
No, I think that was spot on. That was great.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to go to quick fire questions. I got 2 questions for each of you. While I'm doing that, think about my final question, which is going to be, who do you recommend as a guest for a future episode? But first of all, Jeff, here's your question. How did you meet your best friend?
How did I meet? That seems like a loaded question that my wife has something to do with. There's only one way I can answer that and survive. I met my best friend in Dallas, Texas, the day that she moved there, and met her, ironically, the same day that I met her parents, and didn't know that here we are 20-something years later that we'd be married and raising children together.
Wow. And okay, here's another one for you. What activity or sport did you try as a kid and failed at?
Oh, boy, I hate to say this, but football. I wrestled 138 pounds in high school, and when I went out for football, because all my buddies played, I got hit hard and decided, it's not what I'm
Not for you.
I'm just not designed for this.
Okay, Daniel, would you rather save money or save time?
Probably save time these days.
Yeah, definitely, right? I think money's easier to make than gathering more time. If you could switch place with one of your friends for a day, who would it be and why?
That could get dark.
That could get very dark. Well, let's keep it safe. I'll switch with Jeff.
Okay.
How about that? Because I need to
Wow.
learn how to wakeboard, and I know he does it a lot.
Wow, nice. Good call. Good call. Okay,
Yeah,
Rob,
safe.
last two for you.
Okay.
Okay, here you go. In what way do you feel your childhood was happier than other people's?
Boy, the thought that just conjured to me was Lake Powell. Lake Powell's a beautiful lake in northern part of Arizona, southern part of Utah, just surrounded by these beautiful canyons. And we went there religiously for 2 weeks every summer, and that was just paradise for me. And I don't remember being happier as a child, so that was a pretty spectacular experience.
Sounds awesome. Okay, final question for you. What's your favorite quote?
Change or die.
Change your day. I love it. I love it. Guys, is there anybody that you recommend as a guest for a future episode?
We could probably send you a whole list of people. Depends on what conversation you want to have, Mark.
Really around educating partners more on this need to adopt this way of kind of operating for their success going forward.
I think Hayden would be great for that.
Hayden Stafford? I've got him on next. He's coming on next week.
Oh, there you go.
So he's lined up. Cool. I'll bring the discussion. I'll say I've had a chat with you guys first up. And
so we Hayden owns the Catalyst team ultimately. So
I didn't realize that. Okay, That's good to know. Good to know. Guys, it's been great to have you on the show. If people want to connect with you online, what's the best way for them to do this?
So we are on the Microsoft.com website underneath the Dynamics section. You can find some information on Catalyst. There's a short overview video there, a little bit of insight on the idea framework. And we're continuing to update and make edits to that. So adding more and more relevant information on the program.
I think we're all available on LinkedIn. I'd give you my Twitter handle, but I don't tweet very much.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you found that valuable. I hope it's given you food for thought, that you've really, taken on board what Daniel, Jeff, and Rob had to say, and really will go out and start your own journey and understand, the impact that Microsoft Catalyst is going to have in your business. And if you can't get, to those early access partners, go out there, go to LinkedIn Learning. There's a ton of content on design thinking. There's a lot of resource online that you can get started today. In fact, if you take a look at Design Kit, something that, I mentioned, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation actually funded at no cost. You can start getting up to steam, running these kind of exercises within your business and really future-proofing your business in using these tools. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/144. Until next time,